Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Gurur Sakshat Parar Brahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Sai Ishwaraya Vidmahi Satyadevaya Dhimahi Tanna Sarva Prachodayat. Om Sahna Vavatu Sahno Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahe Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahe. Om Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukh Bhag Bhave. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Sai Ram. Good evening and welcome to all of you to a special session on the evening of a very sacred day. We are celebrating the birth anniversary of the teacher of all teachers, as we call him in Sanatana Dharma, Shankaracharya ji. And today in the morning, I got this message that we need to have a special session today evening. And here we are. And I was told it's about experiencing the Shankara within. And so we are all here today for this very beautiful evening. The divine only knows, the consciousness knows why we are here this evening. So I've had this great fondness for Shankaracharya ji ever since I started on my spiritual journey. And there was something about this teacher and about the works that he had done which pulled me towards him. And I felt an unknown bond with this great master who brought the revival of Sanatana Dharma and brought in the principles, the right understanding. Because by the time he was born, the rituals and dogmas of Sanatana Dharma had taken over, and people were losing interest from Sanatana Dharma, and they were beginning to explore other options outside. And he in a very young age, was able to not only teach but record some of the finest works on Vedanta. And he left for us a legacy of very rich literature. If we pursue that literature, then our path to the self, our path to understanding ourself, becomes extremely lucid, full of light. And for those who are inspired to take up the journey of the self, there cannot be a better teacher than Shankaracharya. And he has inspired generations of seers, sages, rishis who have walked this path of Satchitananda, because it is only in our literature that not only we spoke about consciousness, Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahma, but we also said that once you realize that and experience the truth of yourself being the consciousness principle, which is eternal, that understanding and that experience of ourselves not being this name, form, and body, and when we experience this presence of this consciousness, and when we get aware of this consciousness, and when we start experiencing this consciousness as our truth, then it leads us to a joyful experience. It leads us to a fountain of joy within us. And this is what the Western thinkers have not been able to comprehend. And this has been the hallmark of Sanatana Dharma alone. That the idea of this life is not just to realize that we are the consciousness and that this consciousness permeates everywhere. But once you experience this consciousness as the truth of the self, it brings you great joy. And this joy and this experience of this joy, which is called as the Amrit or the nectar of immortality, that nectar needs to be tasted by each one of us. It's our birthright to experience it, having come in this world. And if we remain caught in the body consciousness and in the name, form, relationships, and we are sucked into this world of duality, then it only brings sorrow, pain. And this understanding or this path was very simply elucidated by Shankaracharya ji. He gave us two very beautiful texts to which I deeply relate with. One of them is Nirvana Shatakam, or also known as the Atma Shatakam, which when he was of the tender age of 8 years, he left home in search of his guru. And when he met his guru, Govindapada, the guru asked him who he was. And in response, he introduced himself in 6 verses, Shatakam. And he went on to explain the deepest of the Vedantic principles. And he went on to say that he was not the body consciousness. He was not attached to all the responsibilities, duties of the body, and that he negated everything that had to do with the body, and therefore all the duality that we experience because of our understanding or our limited understanding of ourselves, our narrow understanding of the Jiva consciousness, and that narrow consciousness takes us into the path of samsara. And so in his introduction, he removed all the veils of samsara one by one, layer by layer, saying, I am not this, I am not this, I am not this. He went on even to say that I neither have a mother, nor I have a father, nor I have a friend, nor I have any relatives, and neither was I ever born, because how can the eternal be born? And he says that I am that immortal Shiva, who is an embodiment of this consciousness and who's aware at all times of this consciousness, and therefore is in this state of joy. And then the end he says, Aham nirvikalpo nirakara rupo vibhurvyapta sarvatra sarvendriyanam sadame samatvam na muktir na bandha chidananda rupam shivoham shivo. That I am not having any body, I have no form, I am the formless principle, I am attributeless. There are no qualities, no gunas that you can attach to me. And I am the all-pervading reality, and I am present everywhere in everyone, and I remain in this state of consciousness that I am aware of this truth. It's like the higher bird of the Mandukya Upanishad, which is watching everything and not getting involved with the bittersweet fruits of life, not engaged, detached. And his essential message was, if I see from the works that he's done, was of detachment. That you need to detach yourself from your false and narrow understanding of ourselves as this body principle. And he gave to us a masterful work called Bhaja Govindam. If any of you have read Bhaja Govindam, in fact, in our sessions, we had done all the verses of Bhaja Govindam. Bhaja Govindam is also called as a hammer stroke for removing the delusion of this limited consciousness. It's called the Moh Mudgara. Moh means attachment, and Mudgara is called a hammer. And I associate a lot with Bhaja Govindam and Shankaracharya ji because of this work of his. And this is the work of a master who's come to awaken people who are sleeping, who are not wanting to move forward in their lives to enjoy this bliss, which is what, as I said, is the goal, is the pearl which is waiting for us to discover. And he, being a master who has not only experienced it, and a master who is elucidated this path for others, finds that people are still not either willing or are not making the effort to taste this nectar, this divine nectar. The teacher becomes a little impatient. And I sometimes see this impatience in me, and I think some of you have experienced that impatience when it gets directed towards you. And I realize that sometimes we are so close and yet so far. And it's the quandary of a teacher. It's the quandary of the person who's seen that and who's wanting to take the others ashore, and yet find that for some reason people often find themselves tied up in attachments, invisible bonds, invisible love of life and attachment to the external, that it does not allow them to experience what I believe everyone takes birth to experience, and somewhere gets caught in the way. And even when we come closer to it, we still find ourselves very far from it. And he starts off, when he comes with his followers to the holy city of Benares or Kashi, which is at the banks of river Ganges, with his disciples. And he is walking through a ghat, and he comes across an old person who's perhaps in his 80s. And he's sitting there and he is chanting loudly verses of some mantra. And he looks at him, and then spontaneously he starts by saying, Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mood Mate, Samprapte San Nihite Kale, Nahi Nahi Rakshati Tukurun Karne. And he says that, oh fool, oh deluded person. He refers to that person as being deluded. That look at your age, look at your state. Any time death can come calling to you. But where are you stuck? You are still stuck in repeating mantras, or they talk about grammar rules in an interpretation. Look, where are you stuck? When you are at the threshold of letting go of this body, and you are still trying to memorize certain mantras, these mantras are not going to be of any help to you when the time comes, when you have to exit this body. So he's trying to awaken a person and saying, what are you doing? Are you mad? You have precious little time left, and this precious little time you are wasting in running after the things of the world only to fill your belly. You're trying to do this so that you can earn some money, and you can fill your belly. So if you understand what he's trying to say, is he is showing his disgust at man not awakening to the urgency of the work at hand. And what is the work at hand? The work at hand is only to bring the right understanding that this path that we have chosen, or this path that we are on, is the path of dukuran karane, that it is a path of bringing only sorrow. We move out of sorrow, and then we move into another one. And as Satya Sai Baba said, that happiness is the interval between two pains. And the only way out of this is to realize the truth of ourselves. And in Bhaja Govindam, he continues to hit one hammer after another, and he takes away every attachment. In fact, everybody who has not read this great work of Shankaracharya, then you must read it, because he takes away from you every false understanding that you might have about yourself, your relationship with your friends, family, wife, husband, parents, with your wealth, with your possessions, with even knowledge, and everything that you think that you hold very dear to yourself and you cling on to as a sense of false security in this world. He snatches it away from you very brutally. It's actually a very frank and brutal act. And the reason why he's doing it is only because he wants to awaken the ones who are still sleeping. And that is really the quandary. And that is why we must read this work, because it is helping us on this journey. It is helping us on this path of bringing this sense of urgency that we do not have forever, because we do not know at which moment this breath is going to leave us. We cannot take our life for granted. He says life is like a raindrop on a leaf. It shines when it is there, but it is slippery, and any moment this drop of water can run away from this leaf. So this life is so fragile, it's uncertain, and it's a great opportunity at the same time, an opportunity for us to awaken that we must take this opportunity of the time that we have in hand, disentangle ourselves from all that has caught us, like that imaginary alligator that caught the foot of Shankaracharya when he was wanting to leave his home and his mother was not giving him permission. These alligators, these hooks that each one of us have are because of our being still attached. And he says that if we continue to be attached, then punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, punarapi janani, chatare shayanam, iham samsare, bahudustare, kripaya pare, pahi morare. That then, if we are unable to, for some reason, disentangle ourselves, detach ourselves, move away, then we are going to be stuck in this endless loop of birth and death, birth and death, birth and death. And every time we have to go through this painful experience of being in the womb of our mother for 9 months and come out in this world and face this world all over again and go through, its trials and tribulations. And then we keep praying to God to rescue us, to take us across this ocean of samsara. And then he just doesn't, keep hitting us. He gives us a beautiful path. And that is what we have been trying to do when we have been meeting every Saturday. And that's the path given to me. And that's the path why I feel so close to Shankaracharya ji, where he says that there is a path, there is a way for all of us. And he says, Satsangatve Nissangatvam, Nissangatve Nirmohatvam, Nirmohatve Nischalatatvam, Nischalatatve Jivan Mukti. And he says that the path that you have to follow if you want to remove this veil of delusion, this grip of samsara that is holding you, is the path of satsanga, the path of the company of seekers of truth. And if you remain in this august company of seekers of truth, and if you are reflecting, and if you're doing manana on these higher truths, instead of thinking about worldly things, instead of thinking about your sorrows and your pains and all the problems that you have and all the problems that the world is going through, instead of that, if we were to do manana, if we were to step aside and look at ourselves as that consciousness, and if we were to do contemplation on this aspect of ourselves, then what it gives us is detachment. It removes us it removes this delusion of the world. We are able to see what this world is actually about. We are able to separate and get out of all the belief systems and all the matrices that bind us down. We've created a world out of our beliefs. We've created a world out of our attachments. And we are projecting it out. And if we are able to constantly, with the help of satsanga, and if we constantly keep at it, it gets us detached, it removes the delusion, the moha of this world, and that makes us what he calls as nischal tattvam, makes us equanimous, makes us steadfast, makes us equal-minded, where we are not impacted by what's going on around us. We get detached and unaffected by the drama of the world or the samsara around us. And we become like a lotus that blooms, even though it is in muddy water. The company and the state of the society and the world does not matter, because that person has reached a state of equanimity, tatiksha, and that person seeks liberation. Nischal tatve Jivana Mukti, that while being alive becomes a Mukta, a Jivan Mukta, a liberated soul who is Chidananda Rupam, Shivoham, Shivoham. That state of consciousness, that constant awareness. And that's the message of this master to us on this evening. Awake, arise, and stop not till the goal is achieved. To many of you, this goal is at striking distance, it's at touching distance. Most of you I know intimately. Some of you I'm beginning to know. But whether we know each other or not in a physical sense, but at the sense of consciousness, at the level of consciousness, each one of us is one. There is no separation. There is no difference. And to be there for each other and to serve each other and to be able to share this love with each other, it is in this love this hammering comes. It is in this love that the teacher starts to reprimand the student, saying, don't take life for granted. Don't take your wealth for granted. Don't take your relationships for granted. Don't take this breath for granted. In this instant, the Shankara in us, that 8-year-old boy who could experience this higher state of consciousness, can come to each one of us. And this moment, I pray that this consciousness which has asked all of us to get together today should bring to us today this understanding that all we have is now. And what we do with this now is up to us. The grace of the consciousness, the all-pervading master, the all-pervading Brahman. Because every master is nothing but a manifestation of the Brahman. You can call them by any name. You call them Rama, Lakshmana, Jesus, Krishna, Satya Sai, any Sai. It is Brahman, the universal, all-pervading reality. Every morning, this same consciousness gives me a message that I share with you. And that message, if you have gone through the last over 2 months of messages, the consciousness is just telling us, let's awaken. Let's realize that we are this truth. Let's contemplate on this truth and just let go of all our preoccupations, of all the things that distract us from this goal, because there cannot be anything sweeter in this whole cosmos, not this world, not this universe, but in the entire cosmos. Everybody, every being from every dimension comes here, takes birth in this beautiful world called the Earth, this planet, to experience that nectar. It is only available here. Because we go through these difficulties, we go through these hardships, only if there is some struggle, then there is a joy in achieving the goal. Without any struggle, we will never evolve, we will never grow, we will never become the best versions of ourselves unless we are faced with obstacles and problems. Because when we are happy, we are lazy. There is no need for us to work. It's only when problems come in our life is when we start to think about, is there something else? How can I get out of my problems, right? But the minute we get comfortable, we just go back, and we don't realize how we keep getting back, how these invisible hooks of this delusionary world keep us caught. So I wanted to share with you two very beautiful visions I've had, and I think I may have shared with you sometimes in the past, but these came to me again today. And I remember in 2018, I was teaching in a university, and there I saw one of the teachers. He was being pulled by two very ferocious German Shepherd dogs. And I don't know what happened to me, but I looked at this man being dragged by these two very, very, very strong, beautiful animals. And suddenly I got transported into another time and another world, and I saw Shiva standing, being pulled by two dogs. I don't know if any of you knows about the story that when Shankaracharya ji was coming again to Kashi, and he was to cross a bridge, and he was with his followers. And at that time, one Chandala, or a person who we consider, of a lower caste, he was trying to cross that bridge, and he was being pulled by these two dogs. And the disciples of Shankaracharya felt that their great teacher was coming, and this Chandala should make way for his master and this whole party to cross, because the lower caste should kind of give way because the Brahmins were supposed to be the highest of all beings, and therefore naturally they should have the right of way. And they try to engage in this conversation with this Chandala, and that conversation was very beautiful. And suddenly Shankaracharya ji, through his divine vision, saw that it was no ordinary human being. It was actually Lord Shiva there, trying to test if the knowledge of Brahman had given ego to these people. And instantly Shankaracharya ji stepped in, and he paid obeisance to Shiva and said, "O Lord, I see you for who you are, and I make way for you. Knowledge is supposed to make us humble. Knowledge is supposed to make us loving." And when I saw that day, I saw that vision of Shiva being pulled by these two dogs. And I remember I stopped the teacher and I said, "This is a vision I got." He said, "These dogs may be the same, but I am not Shiva." And we had a good laugh. But that memory, that image has stayed back with me. And this was many, many years ago. And then, if you recall, some days back, I had shared a picture on our group of a Dattatreya temple. You can see in that picture the idol of Dattatreya, Lord Dattatreya. And you could also see in the same frame 3 dogs. And I had said that one day I will share with you the story behind this picture. And so today again, this picture again leaped out to me, and I thought, since I promised you today is a good occasion that I should share that with you. Actually, there were four dogs, there were not three dogs. The fourth one was actually behind the third one, and it couldn't come in the frame. In any case, I'd gone to this temple in Kunnur near Ooty in the Nilgiri Hills. And as I was approaching this Dattatreya temple, suddenly from nowhere these four dogs came and they started to bark. What I found very interesting was that they were not just barking, all of them were actually standing on their fours and they were wanting to engage in a conversation. And at that time, I had enough awareness to understand that they were trying to communicate something with me, but I couldn't understand what they were trying to tell me. But I found it very strange because many people were passing by. They didn't come to anyone other than me. And I remember I stood there and I spoke to those dogs, and then afterwards I walked towards the Dattatreya statue. And it was when I was meditating at the Dattatreya statue is when the consciousness gave me this message that these four dogs are the four dogs that always traveled with Dattatreya. So if you see the image or any statue of Dattatreya, which are there even in Sanjeevani hospitals, then there are four dogs which are always at the feet of Lord Dattatreya. Lord Dattatreya is the manifestation of the Trimurti, Brahma, Vishnu, and Mahesh. And along with him are the four dogs, which are the four Vedas. And also he has a cow, which is the wish-fulfilling cow, right? So which represents that if you have the knowledge and the wisdom of the four Vedas, then you have the wish-fulfilling cow with you, and that can manifest for you all that you want to experience in this world. And that memory, and I had the presence of mind at that point of time to take that picture, because it just struck me in that moment that there was something the consciousness was trying to tell me. And much later, when I met Baba, and when Baba called me, he said, the first time when he saw me, he addressed me as his professor. And then he said, "Professor, I have been waiting for you. I have so much work for you, and you have to travel across the whole world, from every village, every city, taking my name, taking my love, taking my presence everywhere." And it was today in the morning when I was sitting, is when all this starts to come together. That this is the time when all the past treasures of wisdom and knowledge, all these portals of wisdom are being opened. And just like Shankaracharya ji, who as a small child was endowed and bestowed with this wisdom, the time has come for each one of us, if we are ready and if we seek it, then this knowledge, this jnana, which is anantam, which is endless, because it is one free-flowing, uninterrupted ocean of consciousness. And we are not separate from it, though we feel that we are separated from it. Once we become one with it, then all that the ocean knows, we know that. We become one with with this ocean. We become one with this consciousness. And this moment is here right now. And it is for us to perceive, to claim it, and to become one with it. So if each one of you can now close your eyes, sit straight, bring your attention onto your third eye, and focus only on your third eye, and let what Shankaracharya ji and the consciousness wants to share with each one of you, let all of you receive what you have come here for. सत्यं ज्ञानम् अनन्तं ब्रह्म सत्यं ज्ञानम् अनन्तं ब्रह्म सत्यं ज्ञानम् अनन्तं ब्रह्म सत्यं ज्ञानम् अनन्तं ब्रह्म सत्यं ब्रह्म ज्ञानं ब्रह्म अनन्तं ब्रह्म सत्यं ज्ञानम् अनन्तं ब्रह्म. I thank the great master Shankaracharya ji for his presence through the consciousness, for guiding us today on the path and on the journey that we must select for ourselves, and may we all experience the bliss, the ananda, the nectar of this perennial consciousness that makes us as limitless beings who have and possess this infinite love. And let this love expand to infinity from this moment onwards. And let us all remain one with this infinite love, this truth we awaken to today, this experience we hold deep in our heart, this joy may light our path for all times to come. Offering all this on the lotus feet of Bhagwan Sri Satya Sai Baba. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Sai Ishwaraya Arpanamastu. Samast Loka Sukhino Bhavantu. Samast Loka Sukhino Bhavantu. Samast Loka Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.